On the 25th of February 2022, my nephew, Matthew Lawrence Perna, went into his garage, placed a rope around his neck, and hanged himself. He was 37 years old, broken and close to unrecognizable. Matt had stopped going out, stopped sleeping, stopped eating, and was vomiting blood. We are a remarkably close family, and we did everything we could, but it wasn't enough. I will let Matt tell you why, in his own words, from a note he wrote on the worst day of his life. I sacrificed my freedom when I entered into the Capitol building on January 6th, and in despair took my own life the night that I wrote this. Signed, Matthew Perna. My nephew was extraordinary. He was honest and strong, and defined by his love of all people. He should have never been pushed to the point of despair. He had no intention of going into the Capitol when he traveled to D.C. In his mind, he was standing up for all of us. Matt believed we are still entitled to free speech in the United States of America, and did not think expressing it would cost him his life. He wanted to witness history and record it for his growing following on social media. Matt had never been in trouble in his life. The doors he went through had already been opened. Video has confirmed this. Congress has been out of session for almost an hour at that point. He did not touch, break, or steal anything and stayed within the velvet ropes, taking pictures and recording. These 14 minutes cost him everything. For the people who drove my nephew to kill himself, that was long enough to go after his reputation, his freedom, his business, his social media presence, his standing in the small community that had always been his home, his joy, his love of life, everything. What followed was one betrayal after another. From the moment Matt found out the FBI was looking for him, he turned himself in. The agents said it would make it easier for him. That was a lie. He was told his clean record would count in his favor. It did not. He was told that having no affiliation with any organized group would help. That was another lie. Then he was told that he would most likely face a fine and nothing else. Not true either. His attorney said his sentence would be less if he made a deal and pled guilty to all charges. That was perhaps the greatest lie of all. In fact, that deal was a trap, and the terms meant nothing to the DOJ, because after Matt pled guilty, the prosecutor decided to present a sentencing enhancement of terrorism, which could have meant many, many years behind bars, as compared to the 6 to 12 months that he was originally told. We all have a breaking point, and that was Matt's. Do not make the mistake of thinking that my nephew was weak. Nothing could be further from the truth. Matt could run a 35K marathon barefoot, finishing on torn, bleeding skin, pushing through the pain. But a life in prison was unimaginable to him. On the phone, he was inconsolable, stuttering, and could barely form a complete sentence. The fear in his voice was heartbreaking. I told him that I loved him and that we would get through this. He told me that he loved me and thanked me for everything. I did not know that would be our last conversation. Matt had a deep faith in God, and though he prayed every day and sought help, no one could tell him when this nightmare would end, and that made everything worse. He had struggled from the start to live with shame and the damage to his beloved family and many friends, caused not by guilt, but those criminalizing the First Amendment. Dishonest, inaccurate reporting and the false J6 narrative in local and national news cast Matt as a violent domestic terrorist. It was a campaign of lies, death threats, and cruel accusations, and it pushed him to the edge. The flames of deceit shattered friendships and close relationships, and everyone around him suffered. I am only standing before this committee because my nephew hanged himself, and I am outraged. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene co-sponsored the Matthew Lawrence Perna Act of 2022 when former Congressman Louis Gohmert submitted it. She is the only person who co-sponsored it and has been the most vocal among her peers about the unjust treatment of the January 6ers. Recently, she called for the impeachment of Matthew Graves, who is just one of the many responsible for mentally torturing my nephew to the point of taking his own life. Ms. Green has been my greatest support, and I am extremely grateful for her fearlessness. This bill could save someone in the future from a total overreach of power by our Justice Department. I ask you to bring this bill to the table and encourage your constituents to pass it. Please, I ask you, do not let my nephew's death be in vain. Matthew's funeral was attended by people from all over the country who had never met him. His online guest book received over 1,000 entries representing 13 countries and 45 states. But disappointingly, not even one sympathy message from anyone in Congress or the Department of Justice. How could strangers from Australia, Taiwan, and Antarctica have sent condolences while many in Congress have yet to hear his name? Since Matthew's death, 3 people have contacted me through social media. All 3 told me about a neighbor or a friend that found their picture on the FBI website for January 6th. Rather than waiting to be raided in their homes or turn themselves in, all 3 shot themselves in the head. How many more are there? We are never going to know. My amazing nephew, Matthew Lawrence Perna, left behind a father and a brother who are beyond devastated. Our family struggles every day, knowing that he died at the hands of our own Justice Department. We have become a country I no longer recognize. Our citizens have quickly been conditioned to fear speaking out for their beliefs. This needs to end. Nothing I do will ever bring Matthew Perna back. I have absolutely nothing to gain by being here today, but I will spend the rest of my life ensuring that he is never forgotten. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here today. Mr. Strachan.